On this episode of Cumberland River, I appear for the first time on camera without shoes, but I'm just trying to blend in with the local population down here in Tennessee. Being from Kentucky, I am experiencing a little bit of culture shock down in this foreign land. And the title is no clickbait. I promised wild beasts, and you shall have wild beasts. It's the epic voyage of the inflatable camping mattress over water and on foot up one of the most beautiful wild creeks that I know of in the region.
Soon may the wellerman come, bring us coffee, tea, and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, take our leave and go. At a fair in the sun of town, her hair was blonde and her dress was brown. Soon may the wellerman come around.
This channel is just as much about experiencing beautiful wild places as it is about sailing in wooden boats. And this is one of those instances where a wooden boat is not the right tool for the job. It's something completely different that may be surprising to some of my viewers. I'm back down in Tennessee and I've been spending a lot of time here lately. Something just keeps drawing me back. I think it's the remoteness. And remoteness, I don't always measure by distance from the pavement. Sometimes it's more just a matter of how difficult is it to get in there. And in the case of this creek, it's very difficult to get back in there. After driving several miles down a bumpy gravel road, I finally come to this rickety, overgrown bridge. To the right of the bridge is the Cumberland River channel, maybe a mile away, and to the left, I'm actually looking at my target destination, the mouth of a remote creek fed by many small springs. To get here in any of my small wooden skiffs, I would have to launch a long ways away and sail or row several miles. But on this occasion, I'm using the newest addition to my toolbox. It's an inflatable stand-up paddleboard, believe it or not, and the advantage of this is I can just carry the board under one arm through basically any terrain that you could walk over. I spent a while scouting for a launch site on both sides of the bridge, and it was all way too steep and overgrown. No way to get in there, but finally I found a suitable place. I would have to paddle a little bit further than I wanted to, but it was the only option. I love the fact that a paddleboard forces you to get your gear down to the bare minimum. I got mine down to a tote with a lot of stuff removed that I would normally carry, and a soft cooler with a couple of beers and a couple of 40-ounce canteens with ice water. After packing my kit about 200 yards through chigger and tick infested woods, it was pretty thick brush in there, I returned to the truck and I have to run the gauntlet one more time, this time with the board. Somehow going barefoot wearing a straw hat just seems like the right thing to do in Tennessee. I don't mean anything derogatory by that. We Kentuckians are natural rivals to this state. I'm just trying to blend in with the locals. It seems like a good way to avoid getting bushwhacked. I suppose the Tennesseans will probably respond by saying something about Daniel Boone's debt. But then you'd be insulting my something 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 great uncle, and I'm actually not joking about that. I'm about to duck under the bridge here, and then it's a straight shot to the mouth of the creek, and this one is no mystery. It's a big creek, and I've been on the upper creek a few times. It's been a while, but I know where the mouth is. It's really obvious. I drove over the bridge on the way in, and you could see the mouth plain as day. I don't know how much distance I would really want to cover on these things, but I'm enjoying it. This is really my second time on a paddleboard for any length of time, and I like it. It's a nice way to see the water. You do need a little bit of balance, but I spent 10 years of my life skateboarding when I was a kid, so I still have some remnant of that balance I developed. But actually, this board is 10 foot, 8 inches, and it's a lot more stable than I thought it would be. It's 33 inches a beam, I think, and it's pretty stable. Honestly, you'd be hard pressed to flip it over other than doing it intentionally. You could fall off of it though. Once under the bridge, I'll be looking directly at the mouth of the creek. I'd say the full paddle from where I set out to the mouth was only about a kilometer. Entering the mouth of the creek, I caught a glimpse of a large, four-legged animal scurrying off into the brush. I didn't get a good visual ID, but I had a feeling I knew what that animal was. As I drew near the bank, a series of odd grunts and snorts emanated from the bush. That was cool. I did not expect to be able to get that close to a family of feral pigs. They didn't seem to mind me at all, or maybe they just didn't know what I was. They were upwind of me most of the encounter there. I was making an effort to be quiet, just kind of drifting, and finally the board came up and just sort of stopped against the bank. I could hear them wrestling around in the brush for a while and snorting and everything. I just sat there, and eventually they went back the way they came and came right in front of the camera. Feral hogs are escaped domestic pigs that essentially return to their wild state. As bizarre as that sounds, their hair grows thicker and the boars grow thick tusks. I think they're kind of cool to watch, but they're actually very destructive to whatever environment they occupy. You can see where the pigs have been rooting around extensively here in this small spring, and they've taken all the vegetation down to bare mud. And this was a big area of just nothing but mud and dirt. It should be all green. My understanding is that the feral hogs are not allowed to be hunted in this area. It's starting to get pretty shallow, so I went ahead and removed the big skeg. This board has two small skegs that are maybe 3 inches, and then one big removable one that goes in the center of the two small skegs, and the big one is maybe 6 to 8 inches, and it does an amazing job of helping this thing to track straight. Actually, with the big skeg down, it's pretty hard to turn a tight circle. The water was low in this creek, but unlike the last one I visited in Tennessee, that was pretty much completely dry, this one had some good current coming down it for sure, and even down at the mouth, the water was pretty clean and cold. I'd run out of good water at the deep blue pool and decided to pick up the board and continue on and try to get a little further upstream. Portaging with a paddle board is pretty much a walk in the park, even with my cooler and tote and paddle all still secured to the board. Man, I was just setting up a shot and a giant woodpecker came through, and then behind it came what I think was a hawk. That poor woodpecker was in a race for its life. I think it got away though. Looked like the hawk banked hard and veered away out of the creek bed. This place is just full of life. I've seen all kinds of things. I'm not even that far up it yet. It always rains whenever I'm up a creek like this, but on this day, the rain was especially welcome because it was in the 90s. A cold water creek is a great place to be when it's that hot out. This is spring water coming down the chute here, and man, it is freezing cold. This is some really good water. Starts to get pretty muddy the higher you go up. I'm just gonna blame the hogs for that. I don't really know if they're responsible, but I want to show you the source of this spring. So I am just picking my way through the woods here. Back on the main creek again, I ran into yet another new friend, but this one turned out to be a trickster. Look at that tail shaking. That's no timber rattler. There's a big spring flowing just over here. About 5 years ago, the last time I was here, I came around the corner right here. A giant feral boar stood up. It was over here bathing itself. And that kind of gave me a little bit of a scare because at that time, I didn't even know there were feral pigs anywhere near here. And that dude was probably, I don't know, 250 pounds, maybe more. I don't know. It was a big, big pig. The water is super cold once again, and that means this is spring water. The pigs are fond of the springs as well, probably just trying to cool off.
I went down to Tennessee across the state line to set me up a still where the water is so fine. up a shady holler where the spring runs clear, but there hasn't been no water there for going on a year. I wandered up the holler till I came unto a ford, and it looked just like a meeting of the revenuers board. I knew that they were nasty, but I was not prepared for this. Basking in their squalor were 500 feral pigs. There's a big pig plugging up the creek. There's a wild boar cutting off the water flow. Creek's been dry for a week. There's a wild hog wallering upstream, I know. What is this before me? Tell me, how can this be real? Their leader with 15-foot tusks addressed me with a squeal. The boar said, "Hello, buddy, welcome to our magic spring. The water's kind of muddy, but it bubbles and it sings. I know you came a long way across the Tennessee state line. Would you like to take a swallow of our famous acorn shine?" I could not believe my eyes, for there beside the hill, those muddy pigs had set them up a great big moonshine still. There's a big pig plugging up the creek. There's a wild boar cutting off the water flow. Creek's been dry for a week. There's a wild hog wallering upstream, I know. I took a slug, or maybe 10, it was so crisp and sweet. The big boar took one too, and then he carried on to speak. From the county fair my grandpa busted out and ran, us being his progeny, a wild piggy clan. He fled for many days until he came unto a farm. There he met my grandmother and took her by the arm. They crossed the Tennessee state line and found this happy spring. Many a rambling farmer's pig is taken under their wing. There's a big pig plugging up the creek. There's a wild boar cutting off the water flow. Creek's been dry for a week. There's a wild hog wallering upstream, I know.
Pennants are now available at cumberlandrover.com. Historically flown for signal purposes, a pennant is that indescribable something that your boat is missing. They can help you read the wind, increase visibility of your small craft, and they just look cool, fluttering from the masthead or yard of a lug sail. You can have any color you want, as long as it's bright red. I have 2 styles of pennant now available at cumberlandrover.com.